Hi everyone, so we're going to be looking at how we can create this spinning box animation, and when you click on it, it changes its size, so you can click on it again and it goes back to its original size. And you can see here we got welcome text, but if I refresh the page here, you can see that the word welcome, it animates one letter at a time onto the page. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a brand new project here on my desktop. Do npx create next app. This will be 13-1 Next.js framer motion. And I'm going to say no to TypeScript, no to ESLint, no to Tailwind, no SRC, no app router. And I'm going to just say no to this as well. And once it's done here, we can then drag and drop the folder over. And here we got our project now. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to fix a few things here in the code so we could start off with the brand new project. So in my index.js, in pages, index.js, I'm just going to remove a few things so it's nice and clean. So I'm deleting everything between the main, and I got rid of the header tag, and I'm just going to get rid of this inter for the Google fonts because I don't need it right now. Delete that. So I'm going to start off with this basic template just like this. And I'm going to save the page here, so I just have this basic template. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to clean out the root, so globals.css, so delete everything in the globals.css, and I'll just keep the root for right now. That's it. And then I'm going to also go to my home.module.css, delete everything under the main, and I'll just make this 50 view height like that. So I'm just starting off with a basic layout. And then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to create a components folder here at the root of my project. So new folder, components. And I'm going to start off with, I'll make the folder, I'll start off with the box. And then I will, inside the box, I will make a new file, index.js. And if we're going to make a box, first I'll just make the default template for the box component. So I want to use Framer Motion, so we do have to install it. So right over here, I just searched for Framer Motion on Google, and I'm here at this documentation, and I need to make sure I install Framer Motion, so I'm going to get started. And here it's just telling us how we need to set up the tags in order to get started with the animation. I'm just going to try to see if there is the installation here, right here. npm install Framer Motion. So I'm going to copy this. And right over here, I'm just going to open a new terminal. And I'm going to install this. And once it's done, always check your package.json. And you can see here we got Framer Motion installed for our dependencies. So now we can get started with the box. So right over here, when I look at this documentation, I see that I need to also import Framer Motion at the top. So I'm going to copy this import, and I'm going to put this I'm going to put this import right here above the export for our box because we will be using it. And on the documentation, it also shows us how to set up the tag, which was using the opening motion.div and self-closing tag. And in this self-closing tag, this is where we're going to add these value properties. So I'm going to add style is equal to, let's say I have some sort of logic I want to add for the style. So I want to have a width, but I want to check to see if it is, let's see, is open. I'll call it is open for now. So if it is, it's 150 in size. If not, it is going to be 500 in size for the width. Then for the height, I will just keep it the same, and I'll keep at 150. I'll say border radius. I'll make it 30. So that makes the corners rounded for the square or rectangle. And then I'll put a background color. Let's just put red for right now. Save it. And what I'm going to do, because I have this value is open, I'm going to be using a use state for it. So I'll add a const, and I'll say is open, set is open. I'll say set open is equal to use state, and it's initially false. So if it is initially false, then the width will initially be a really long rectangle. So that means the square has opened up to a rectangle. But what I want to do is when I click on this object, it will then change the false to a true. And what I want to do is I want to also, under the style, I'm going to add an on click directly on here, because when I directly click on this, this will change the actual size. So I'm going to call set open. And to do the opposite of false, you can just do that exclamation is open. So the exclamation just pretty much means do the opposite. So I'm just going to save it right here, and I'm going to run it just to make sure that it works. And before I do that though, I have to import this component. So I'm going to go to my pages, index.js. I'm going to import the box. So import box from our component, and I'm just going to add the box here. I'm going to save it. Now I'll do npm run dev in my terminal, and I'll check to see if this logic for the box is at least working. So I'm going to use port 3001. So right over here we could see that we got our long rectangle, because initially it's false, so it's like 500 pixels wide. I click on it, and now you can see it's working. It goes back to that square. I click on it again, it goes wide, and so on and so on. Now I just want to do a little bit of fancy animation and make it twirl and move a bit. So what I could do right here is I could also add some sort of animation to this box. So if I go back to the documentation, so right here there's this thing called animate, and it's to start the animations. And right over here, so let me go to the components here, and let me just check. So right over here there's this thing called animate, and this is what we want to use. But what I want to do is I want to rotate the box. So right over here in transform, there is this rotate. So we can rotate it just using a regular value, or we could also rotate it using the X and Y and Z coordinates as well. So let's just try this out here. So if I just type in animate is equal to, and I'll put 2 curly brace here, and I'll put rotate. I'm going to try rotate X and rotate X. Okay, I'll try giving this like a 20. Rotate Y, give this a 20, and rotate Z, make that 20. Let's just see what happens if I do this. Okay, so it did kind of skew it and rotate it, but it's not really what I want. I'm gonna also try doing this rotate 360. So I'm gonna try see if it goes 360 degrees, but also rotate along the X, Y, and Z axis. Okay. So it does do something, but it's going like super fast. It only goes once when I actually refresh the page. I'm going to try adding some sort of duration so it just slows down a little bit. So if I go back here and I go to transition, so in transition we could add some other key values. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my code. I'm just gonna make this really basic for right now. I'm just gonna make this transition really basic for right now. So ease, I'll make it linear, duration of 2, and repeat of output infinity because I want it to keep going. And type, I will make it of type spring, so it kind of gives it a more natural flowing feel, so it incorporates physics into this. So I'm going to save it, and I'm just going to refresh the page here. So you can see here it does this kind of nice little bounce, even though it's like turning, rotating, it does a nice little bounce at the end, and then it just keeps on rotating over and over and over again. I'm just going to get rid of that movement. I'll remove that skew on the X and Y axes. I think I just don't really want that there. It's going to be better if it's just 360 for the rotate. So I'm going to save it. There we go. I'm just going to keep it nice and flat. So that's how we create a box with some sort of click movement and also adding animation and transition with the use of framer motion. So next thing we're going to look at is how we can do this text animation just like we see down here. The welcome slowly appears one letter at a time. So let's get into this. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make a new component here. So in the components folder, I'm going to make another folder in here. And this folder is going to be called animated text. And I will add a index.js in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have to import motion. From framer motion, and I'll set up the default template. So I got this set up. I'm going to add these curly brace brackets right here at the top because I'm going to pass over some sort of text, what I want animated. And in order to do this, I'm going to just save this page first, and I'm going to go to my regular home page, and I'm going to import the animated text. And I'm going to put the animated text just down below the box. And the animated text, it's a self-closing tag, but because I'm passing some sort of text over, I'm going to put a text is equal to, and I'll just say welcome, exclamation mark. So I'm passing over this text that I could use, and it's going to animate this text. So I can actually add a lot of these different tags now. So I could actually copy this down, right? And I can make multiple different things like hello, hi, and then each one of these will be animated based on the animated text component. But I'm just going to stick to welcome for right now. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go back to my animated text file, and right over here we're going to then set up some sort of constant here. So we're going to set up const letters is equal to, we're going to have an array from the text that we pass over. So it's going to pretty much make this text an array of information. So each letter will be its own individual item. And then we are going to also set up, let's first set up the div down here. So I'm going to set up the motion. I'm going to set up the motion.div right here, and I'm going to not have it as a self-closing tag. Because I'm going to put something in the middle, but I'm going to, in the motion div opening tag, I will add a style is equal to, and I'll put overflow. If it's overflowing, it will just be hidden. Display of flex. Font size of 2 rem. And what I'm going to do is initial will be hidden. So at first the text is just hidden, and I'm going to animate it. Animate is equal to visible. So it's going to come from hidden to visible, but I also need to add some sort of variant. So the variant is going to help animate it so that it actually slowly transitions over time to showcase the letters one at a time. So what I could do is I'll add a variant is equal to, and it'll be called container. So the container, I will make something under this letters constant, and it'll be const container. It's going to be hidden at first, and the opacity will be 0, and then I will make it visible by each item that goes into it, so one letter at a time. It will then make opacity of 1, so it slowly comes from 0 opacity to 1 opacity, and it's going to transition. So stagger children is going to be 0.30, and then delay children 0.04 multiplied by I, so each time it takes a little bit longer for the next one to show up. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because, so stagger children, it means the first child will be delayed by 0 seconds, second by 0.01, third by 0.02, and so on. So then it's slowly making one letter at a time appear, and then there will be a delay of children. So it allows you to customize the delay per visual state. So you can tell it how long it should take for each individual item, each individual letter to show up. And you can see the 0.04 multiplied by I, so each time a child shows up or one letter shows up, the next one takes pretty much double the amount of time, right? Because the first letter W will first show up, then the letter E will show up like pretty much double that time, and so on and so on. So it's going to slowly animate one letter at a time. And what I want to do now is this letters that is in this array that's been created, we're going to map through it. So we're going to, inside the motion.div, we're going to have some sort of letters, and we're going to map through it. And we're going to do index, or we're going to do letter, and then index. And I'll just have the rounded bracket, and I'll put motion.span, opening and closing tag here. So what it's going to do is there's going to be a variant, and I'm going to make some sort of child as well. And each iteration is unique, so I need to put key is equal to index. And inside this, I will be checking if the letter, so in the curly brace, take one letter at a time, and if it's equal, strictly equal to a space, then if it's true, if it's a space, then we're going to add this 00 A0, or just add the letter directly. So what this means is, I will just add a comment right here, is the backslash U00A0. It means no break space Unicode character. So if there is any type of space, we're not going to add any type of space or break code to it. We're not going to, so what's going to happen is if there's a space anywhere in between the letters, then we're not going to break onto a new line or anything. So it's just pretty much saying that it's just going to be a space that's going to show up. If the letter, there's really no letter there, it's just a space, then we're just going to actually add a space. But if there is not a space, then we're going to add that one letter at a time. And what we need to do now is take care of this variant for the child that we set up here. So we're going to add another constant. So const child is equal to. So if it is visible, we'll do something. And if it is hidden, we'll also do something as well. So if the child is visible, we'll have opacity of 1. It'll start at x axis, x of 0, y of 0. We're not going to offset it by anything. So transition. So we're going to have a spring. So spring is like physics for realistic motion. So we're going to have a type of spring. And then we're also going to have some sort of strength of force. And this is where we add damping. So damping is the strength of force. And then we're also going to add stiffness of the spring. So the higher values will create more sudden movements. So we're going to add stiffness of 100. So that's if it is visible, but if it is hidden, we're going to add opacity of 0, and then x to -20, y to 10, and transition of type spring, and we'll add the damping and stiffness of 100. So we're not going to change much of these values. You can play around with it if you want, but we're just going to, this is basically going to offset the characters one by one, so then you'll see that nice smooth movement from that offset of the letter, so where the letters were moved to when it's hidden, and it'll slowly move to the original position of where each letter should be placed when x and y is 0. So let's save this and check to see what we see. So I'm going to refresh the page. And there you go, you could see welcome exclamation. So it comes out one letter at a time, and you can see it starts from like the bottom left area, and it slowly transitions from the hidden to showing each letter as it slowly shows up. So that's how we create this box spinning and clicking movement, and then the actual individual movement of the letters that show up on the screen.